Tonight, Israel's isolation grows after 6 months of war. Gaza now in ruins, Hamas still standing. Israel, initially united against the unprecedented terrorist attack, now turning on itself. And more at odds with its closest ally, with the risk of a wider war as great as ever.
I'm Holly Williams in Tel Aviv. There are fears here in Israel that Iran could retaliate after an airstrike killed members of its Revolutionary Guards.
Also tonight, increasing political pressure to ban weapons sales to Israel. Plus, new aftershocks rattle New Jersey and New York.
I'm Michael George in New Jersey with questions being raised about late emergency earthquake alerts.
And later, an electrifying ride in one of the world's most beautiful machines. Our Charlie D'Agata behind the wheel.
Okay, here we go. Wow.
This is the CBS Weekend News from Washington with Adriana Diaz.
Good evening. Adriana is off. I'm Major Garrett. The Middle East, no stranger to conflict and simmering rivalries, is especially tense tonight. Israelis are on alert after American intelligence officials cautioned that Iran is planning to return fire in retaliation for a deadly Israeli strike in Damascus, Syria. This anxiety did not deter thousands of protesters from marching on the streets of Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities tonight, 6 months after the Hamas attack. There is, however, a tiny glimmer of good news. Hamas representatives said they will go to Cairo tomorrow for ceasefire and hostage release talks. They will also significantly be attended by an Israeli delegation and CIA Director William Burns. CBS's Holly Williams leads us off tonight from Tel Aviv.
At a funeral on Friday for 7 members of the Revolutionary Guards killed in a suspected Israeli airstrike, Iran vowed to take revenge. And that's fueling fears that the Israel-Hamas war could widen into a regional conflict.
Tonight, across Israel, there are protests against the government. Many here are demanding the country's leaders do more to bring the remaining hostages home. Around 130 are thought to be in Gaza, though some of them are believed dead. The body of one of them, Elad Katzir, was captured by Israel's military in an overnight raid. He was kidnapped from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7th, appeared in 2 hostage videos and was murdered by militants in January, according to an Israeli military official. He could have been saved if there had been a deal on time, his sister posted on social media, but our leadership is cowardly. An internal investigation was released on Friday into how Israel's military killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers in Gaza with drone strikes. The soldiers mistakenly believed Hamas militants were inside one of the group's vehicles, according to the report, after misidentifying an aid worker likely carrying a bag as a militant with a gun.
This is a tragedy. It was a terrible chain of errors, and it should never have happened. The IDF takes full responsibility for this regrettable loss of life.
In a phone call Thursday, President Biden warned Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that U.S. policy on Gaza will depend on Israel taking steps to reduce civilian harm.
As Israel pursues any military operations against Hamas, it has to prioritize the protection of civilians. It has to make that job number one.
Shortly after that phone call, Israel announced it would increase aid deliveries to Gaza, including through the Erez crossing. Major, that's the main checkpoint into northern Gaza, attacked by Hamas on October 7th and closed since the beginning of the war.
Holly Williams, thank you. Tonight, there is mounting scrutiny of the billions of dollars in U.S. military aid to Israel, including weapons used in Gaza. CBS's Natalie Brand joins us from the White House. Natalie.
Good evening, Major. We heard the president make some of his sharpest criticism yet this week, saying Israel has not done enough to protect civilians. But that has not stopped weapons transfers from the U.S. to Israel, although some lawmakers call this week a possible turning point.
A new letter signed by nearly 40 Democratic Congress members, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, urges the administration to reconsider its recent decision to authorize a transfer of a new arms package to Israel and to withhold future offensive arms transfers until a full investigation is completed. They're talking about billions of dollars in weapons, including fighter jets and 2,000-pound bombs approved long before the Israel-Hamas war. But the transfer occurred late last month, despite the administration expressing outrage over civilian casualties in Gaza. The Congress members also voiced concern over reports the administration is considering authorizing another $18 billion arms transfer, including F-15 fighter jets.
Now, despite this letter, the White House is reiterating tonight that Israel faces active threats throughout the region, including from Iran, and says the U.S. still has an ironclad commitment to help Israel with its self-defense. Major?
Natalie, as you know, this has become a political issue for the president's re-election campaign. But as we understand it, new numbers out today show a strong fundraising track record.
The Biden campaign and DNC says that they raised more than $90 million in March, bringing its total cash on hand to around $192 million. That's more than double what the Trump campaign and RNC report. CBS News has learned, though, tonight that a Palm Beach fundraiser with billionaire GOP donors is expected or aiming to raise around $50 million. Major?
Natalie Brand joining us from the White House. Thank you. Today, aftershocks were felt in parts of New Jersey and New York. The tremors followed an earthquake that hit the Northeast Friday, rattling nerves but not doing much damage. CBS's Michael George joins us for more. Michael?
Major, good evening. Today, people in New Jersey and beyond felt an aftershock centered in Gladstone. That's about 40 miles from here. And seismologists say those aftershocks could happen for days following that magnitude 4.8 earthquake that shook up the region. One of the largest earthquakes to ever hit the Northeast. More than 40 million people rattled by Friday's earthquake, centered in Reddington, New Jersey.
It sounded like 10 freight trains going at the same time.
It was felt from the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor as far away as Washington, D.C. and Maine. A handful of homes were damaged in Newark, but there were no injuries or deaths and no major damage to bridges, tunnels, or buildings. But there are growing questions about the speed of New York City's response. A phone emergency alert was sent about 25 minutes after the quake was over.
20 minutes is very, very fast for a public notification.
In California, where quakes are common, alerts can happen as quickly as 10 seconds before an earthquake. One New York business took advantage of the situation, just hours after the quake, selling T-shirts reading, "I survived the New York City earthquake."
She created it very, very quickly, and we got it printed and just thought it was awesome.
Now, experts at Columbia University say this was the strongest earthquake to hit the New York City metro area since 1884. Major?
There's always a T-shirt. Michael George, thank you. Bettors placed wagers on that game like never before. Elise Preston has more on this high-stakes play. Elise?
Hey, Major. Last night's Iowa versus Connecticut women's Final Four matchup was the single biggest women's betting event of all time, according to FanDuel. Now, this year's Final Four for the women's is up 323% compared to last year.
Place your bets. Americans will legally wager nearly $3 billion during this year's March Madness.
With people like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese being household names, betting interest has exploded in the women's tournament.
6 years ago, sports betting was illegal until the Supreme Court struck down a federal ban in 2018. Now it's big business. 38 states and the District of Columbia allow gambling on games.
BetMGM is for everyone that loves sports betting.
NBA and NHL viewers are exposed to 3 gambling ads a minute, a recent study found. Even ESPN is betting its business on the action.
It's truly impossible to be a sports fan now and not be inundated with appeals to gamble.
That's causing other problems. LA Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is mired in a scandal after his former interpreter allegedly stole millions to pay for bets.
Why is it such a nightmare for the betting industry as a whole?
Anytime the integrity of the sport comes into question, there's a real worry that maybe we've unleashed a beast.
Now, here in California, betting is not allowed. The American Gambling Association says betting ads help guide people from illegal to legal markets. But critics say advertising convinces more people to gamble. Major?
Elise Preston, thank you. Here's a question. Who wants to be a billionaire? Anyone? Anyone? Here's why I ask. 40 consecutive drawings over 3 months have produced no Powerball jackpot winner. So tonight's jackpot has grown to an estimated $1.3 billion. On Monday, a rare solar eclipse will cross North America. Millions of us are expected to gaze in the sky and take it all in. Hundreds of cities and smaller towns in 15 states lie along what is called the path of totality. The event has also given, as you might imagine, an astronomical boost to many businesses, including a small Tennessee company visited by our Janet Shamlian.
Inside this Memphis area plant, they're planning for outside. What's made here will be worn by tens of millions across the country as they gaze skyward Monday, eclipse glasses.
Describe what the past few weeks have been like.
It's been amazing. We are making so many eclipse glasses, and now we're just trying to get them out the door.
John Jarrett runs American Paper Optics, the nation's largest producer of eclipse glasses.
So to make a pair of paper glasses, 3D glasses, or eclipse glasses, it's a 5-step process.
With as many as 15 states in the path of totality, workers here will crank out close to 75 million pair.
For this company, they can't produce glasses fast enough. There are 300,000 right here on these pallets. They'll be out the door in 24 hours.
Manufacturing is a combination of individual assembly and high-tech machines. Custom orders come from businesses, colleges, and hospitals like St. Jude's. The Ross Perot Museum ordered more than 1 million, but there are small batches too.
This one we're doing for a wedding.
Okay, what about this one, though?
Wait a second. That's hilarious. Wait, that's you. That's great. I didn't even know those were up there.
The silver-black polymer film of eclipse glasses is 1,000 times stronger than even the darkest sunglasses. NASA says it's never safe to look directly into the sun, even when partly covered.
That one's going to New Orleans, and this one's going to New Jersey.
The race is on now to get the last orders out ahead of a truly astronomical moment.
This eclipse is going to be like 30 Super Bowls all wrapped in one. It's actually going to be the most bipartisan moment we're going to have in 2024. And I think the most important thing is to live in the moment. Put your phone down.
And look up at a phenomenon for the ages. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Bartlett, Tennessee.
With our special glasses at the ready, we will have live special coverage of Monday's total eclipse beginning at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, right here on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. Coming up on the CBS Weekend News, thumbs up from American astronaut Laurel O'Hara. Details on her return to Earth. And up next, a California doctor who made it his mission to help those most impacted by the war in Gaza. This is the final weekend of Ramadan, and an American doctor is now back from Gaza after witnessing the unspeakable, seeing children die. CBS's MTS Taib says for him, peace cannot come soon enough.
For Dr. Mohammed Saber, family and faith are everything. The 39-year-old emergency physician is back home after spending 5 weeks inside Gaza.
There's nothing logical about anything there.
Treating some of the youngest victims.
When I saw that 10-year-old take his last breath, all I could think about was, I'm still breathing. How come I get to still breathe?
As he gathers around the dinner table with his family in Northern California to break his fast for the Islamic holy month of Ramadan.
So different having iftar here.
His thoughts are never far from those he left behind.
People can barely find food to eat to break their fast.
I just entered Gaza through the Rafah crossing.
While in Gaza, Sabeh kept a daily diary of his time on the ground.
It's almost like a zombie apocalypse movie.
What he saw was so horrific, it defies belief.
I've never seen so many children killed in my entire career. These are things that you never imagine, even in the worst horror movie.
Many of the over 200 emergency room patients Sabeh saw every day were kids. Their wounds from Israel's attacks so serious and medical resources so scarce, he had to donate his own blood over and over again.
One of the basic things that we take for granted here is Tylenol, ibuprofen for fever control, pain control. We did not have that.
Another harrowing reality was the number of patients who had just been dug out from the rubble.
It's as if they've entered a different realm, a different world.
A generation forever scarred by a conflict that many are too young to even understand.
They came to me with this glazed look of terror. What impact does that have on them for years to come?
Sabeh hopes to return to meet, once again, the children he not only helped save, but tried to give hope to.
I would love to see them live with the freedom to be able to do everything that we're able to do. Every human being deserves that.
Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, London.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, mission accomplished. An American astronaut returns to Earth on a Russian ride. Today, touchdown in Kazakhstan. A parachute softened the landing of a Russian Soyuz capsule carrying 3 crew members from the International Space Station. Among those returning to Earth, American astronaut Laurel O'Hara.
And a good view of Laurel O'Hara with a thumbs up. Each of the crew members being presented with a Matryoshka doll, the stacking dolls that bear the resemblance of each crew member.
It was O'Hara's first mission in space. In all, she traveled 86 million miles orbiting Earth. Coming up on CBS Weekend News, gas-powered since its debut, this classic is now purring with a different type of power. We end tonight with a ride in one of the world's most beautiful machines, built in the 20th century, powered by the 21st. Here is CBS's Charlie D'Agata.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is a 1960s E-Type Jaguar. And yet it is on the cutting edge of automotive technology.
Looks like the original car. It is the original car. It's just got a different engine. That's it.
Steve Drummond is the co-founder of Electrogenic, taking classic cars of the past back to the future.
This is our electric motor.
By replacing the old combustion engines with new electric motors.
What we're now doing is we're packaging that tech into sophisticated drop-in sort of plug-and-play kits so that they can be installed by our agents around the world.
Including the U.S. The kits start at roughly $30,000, not including installation. Drummond says not only has the technology moved on, so have the times and the market.
The bigger growing category is the 30 to 55. They've always wanted a classic car, but don't have the time or the skills to actually keep it on the road. So it's a sort of perfect marriage for them.
Of course, it's far cleaner and takes a fraction of what it costs to run a gas guzzler. But how does this electric motor compare to the real thing? Okay, here we go. Wow. Like most electric cars, the acceleration is immediate. In fact, 0 to 60 in this electric Jag outperforms the original. The motor revs through the gears like a traditional engine. So you still get that sporty feeling of the car. Including an identical top speed of 150 miles an hour. But there is the 350 horsepower elephant in the room. For classic car purists, nothing can match the sound and smell of the real thing. The era of the real thing may be coming to an end. In tomorrow's brave new world, electric classics may be the only road ahead. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, near Oxford, England.
That's the news for this Saturday. Tomorrow on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan's guests include Maryland Governor Wes Moore and National Security Council spokesman John Kirby. And join me every week for my podcast, The Takeout. Politics, policy, and just a little bit of pop culture. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Good night.